Killed.
This is the Tabernacle Podcast with your host, Britton Bishop.
Thanks, Andrew. Oh, man. What's up, Tab family? We should not be doing this today.
Who allowed this?
One youth pastor was enough. Now we've got 3. No adult supervision. Benji's decided today's the day we're burning this thing down. It's been real. It's been fun. This might be the last one. So, no. What's up, boys? How we doing?
What's going on?
Andrew, AJ, Tab family, you know him well. Andrew Clark, family, and one of the teaching pastors over at Bayview Church in Traverse City. AJ Garcia, next gen pastor, all the things, coffee connoisseur, sick mustache, our resident.
Welcome
to it.
I live here.
Resident of Traverse City, I don't know. AJ Garcia from Westside Community Church, jumping on the pod today. So very excited. So we're going to talk just a little bit. It's kind of that time of year. It's officially summertime. It's June. It's hot. Man, last week it was insane. Like 90s craziness. It's like, man, Michigan, you got to decide.
That's right.
You can't be cold and hot. You got to decide which one we're going to do, and let's stick with it. But so before we jump into the podcast, though, I'm curious, like as the season kind of changes, it's summertime in northern Michigan. What are the things that like just get you guys hyped? Like, man, it's that time of year. Like that's what we're doing.
Obviously, the ministry calendar kind of slows down. So having like 2 kids, I'll get to spend a little more time with them. And then I love the summer because I get to work out more in my garage.
That was such a good dad and like good answer.
Thank you.
Not what I expected.
Thank you.
AJ, what about you, bro?
Going out to like bonfires, beach days,
Nice.
stuff like that with friends, and then running outside.
Love it. Man, I got to find better friends.
What are you excited
Benji, what
about?
about you, bro? Summertime? Is it airsoft time now? It's nice out. We're just playing airsoft. Love it.
Let's go.
Yeah, for me, I don't know. I hated the beach when I moved here because like you can't be a single young adult male at the beach and not look creepy.
Yeah.
Like it's not physically like you're not. It doesn't matter how innocent. Like you could literally be sitting there reading your Bible, look creepy.
Yep.
So that might be the
probably
creepiest
look
thing to do. Yeah,
more
actually.
Beach volleyball downtown,
Just,
and you're just like
reading my Bible.
Song of Solomon. I'm waiting for the one who waits on the Lord.
So I hated the beach when I first moved here, but now, Hope and I mean, we like going to the beach looking for, like beach class or whatever it is, like just chilling, taking our dog down there, doing that stuff. We're big ice cream people, and so in the summer, it feels like you're allowed to just eat it as much as you want, and there's no rules. No free shout-outs to a spot in downtown Traverse City that got wooden spoons. Bro, I'm done. I can't do it. Milk and honey.
Mm-hmm.
What are we doing? Everything good in this world?
Like
I honestly, dude,
splinters.
it was
It changes the taste of the ice cream.
100%, bro.
You
A
taste
wooden
wood.
spoon? You can't have a wooden spoon. If you're listening to this and I'm offending you right now, good. Because I'm telling you, if a turtle had to eat off a wooden spoon, they'd be like, you know what, bring the plastic back. We'll deal with it. All right? I don't know if I meant that, but I said it. And we're in it. We're in it today, boys. I'm glad this is the Tabernacle podcast because
Right.
most of them just said amen.
Know your crowd. That's good.
Yeah, but no, so just like ice cream, chilling at the beach now, hanging out with my wife, not being creepy. Like, that's kind of the vibe for me during the summer. But I think another one of my favorite things, especially since moving up here, is camp season.
Mm-hmm.
Like, love camp season, love getting to do camp with you guys, with some of the other dudes we get to do ministry with, Adam, some guys we're doing it with this year for the first time. So it's going to be awesome. I'm excited. That's something I get to look like that's the one thing where I'm like, man, should we move camp so that way we don't have to think about it for 2 months? Or is like the anticipation a part of like the hype, like build up, get to look forward to it. So, But yeah, so I decided, with it kind of being that time of year, signups are live at all of our churches. So anybody listen to this that goes to Westside, Bayview, New Hope, Kensington, Faith Reformed, Tabernacle in Manistee or Buckley. Did I miss anybody? I think I nailed them all. Yeah, sign up with whatever church. The price is the same, so it's not going to be any different for you. Sign up with whatever church you go to. But yeah, so just was thinking about that, and I was like, man, you know what? Like, there are so many people that as I'm like walking around talking about camp, having conversations, one, there's people that like maybe there's parents that have never experienced it. They've never seen camp. They don't know kind of what's the purpose, what's the reason for that. Some of it is like just the question, like, why should I go to that? And like, what is it? And so I think for like this podcast and just to take some time, because I think even more than camp, like just student ministry as a whole, sometimes that can be kind of the perspective is like, why should I go to that? What is it? Is it just like Mountain Dew, pizza, and dodgeball? Like, what is the point? Like, why can't I just go? And so I wanted to take some time and invite two guys that I really respect just kind of in the game of student ministry in our region, just to spend some time, one, talking about camp, but also just spending some time diving into student ministry, tell some stories, just talk about the wins, the losses, the reasons that we love getting to do what we do and why we think it's important for people to be a part of. So kind of the first I would kind of tee it up because I think you and I are in a similar boat, AJ, that the reason we're involved kind of in camp in the first place up here is because of Andrew.
That's right.
So whenever like you started out like this idea of like building out like camp, what was kind of the vision behind it? Like, why is it important? Like, kind of break that down for us, then we can like just freestyle from there.
Yeah. Honestly, when I moved back to Traverse City, and the first camp I was a part of was actually run by a guy named John Pomeroy, who's a pastor now of New Anthem Church down in Detroit. But he had started a camp. So I got to kind of come alongside him and just see just the epicness that is a week kind of out of the norm, and everything's a little more over the top than it already is in student ministry, and you're more intentional with worship. And there's just, I don't know, there's just so many of those aspects that we could probably spend multiple podcasts talking about, like the little nitty gritty aspects of it. But he really showed me like the benefit of like actually preparing and planning, because like we've all done retreats, we've probably all been to retreats where it's like, man, do they think beyond like just getting us here? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
we just show up
got
and,
home one for one.
yeah, like we've shown up and be like, oh man, like they didn't think. And so like that year-long planning, then to see it come to like life, it's a really, there's like just that. It's obviously not like giving birth. It's not like any of that kind of stuff, but there is a very like, whoa,
yeah,
this is epic. And you almost have, you don't think about it during the week, but like those weeks to follow, you're like, man, that just happened.
Yeah. And the years to come.
Yeah,
for sure.
Like
And
making those moments.
the stories and all that. And so there's so much life that goes into it. And so as things kind of transitioned, it became more of like, hey, let's have camps happen every summer. I think the drive on my end was not how big can we make this, but it's like I want people to be able to experience this.
Yeah.
You know, I've worked at smaller churches that had larger churches kind of come alongside and say, hey, come be a part of this. And so that was a big goal early on of like, is there the other ministries that could benefit from something we're doing? Not to say, hey, look how cool we are, but to say, hey, we just want you to be a part of this. We want you to be impacted by this. And so it's really cool to see 7-8 years now into this, that we're going to have like 6 churches, especially in the Traverse City area, which is not, it's not normal. Like it's
Right.
not, that's not like a thing. All come together with that same mindset of like, man, we just want to make an impact. And it is, no matter what people's opinions of camps, like there is life change that can happen, has happened, does happen. Like it's a real special thing.
Yeah, 100%. I think for me, like as I think about like camp as a whole, because the first one we all did together was camp. It would have been camp like 21, I believe. Kind of coming out of COVID, like you guys did your one during COVID. That was kind of the thing that you did, and we did our thing. But then coming out of it was like, man, like how can we partner together to like offer these students something like bigger than what we can do on our own? And I think it was just that picture of, like you said, like we're better together in this. And I don't know if that's just like the young like generation in us that's just like fired up about partnership for the gospel. That's just like, man, you know what? Like let's do it together. there's no better way for this to be done than to show these kids, like, it doesn't matter necessarily, as long as the church you go to is built on Jesus and it preaches the Bible and it trusts and believes and preaches the full gospel, like, the other stuff doesn't really matter, and we can partner around that stuff and come together and experience joy and celebration and just getting to see all that come to kind of fruition at camp, and seeing leaders pour into students that they don't even really know, like they just met there. And so I think just that whole aspect, but something you hit on that I think people mistake sometimes just because of whatever it might be, past experience with student ministry or whatever, was that process, like that planning process.
Yeah.
And I think it's just because it's student ministry, people just assume like, oh yeah, those guys are just winging it. But like the intentionality that goes into planning out like a full week-long camp for our students is one that process legit started in August, I think is when we started the process for this year's camp. Like
last August.
Start the planning in August, figure out who's going to be there, sending out ideas, getting guys. Like, I love the way this year's camp's unfolding with different guys having different jobs and different stuff like that. But for both of you guys, I think just speaking to like as leaders, like the shift in like intentionality in camp, and then like, is there any stories that you guys have seen where it's like, man, like camp moved in that space? Because you said like you can say whatever you want, but like I've seen camp move and work in that place, and it's not necessarily camp, right? Let's not split hairs over words. It's Jesus in that setting. But but so like, do you guys have any stories of like students or like leaders that you have now that because of that specific opportunity that they had, Jesus met them in that space and it changed like everything for them?
Yeah.
Anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, I mean, for many years, I'm like had a perfect vantage point for how the Lord worked in you, Andrew, and the way that you like set that up, which is such a dope perspective to have. Because everything that you talked about, like your heart for God showing up in those moments, like the philosophy of like hardcore games, like we're playing serious games where kids are sweating, kids are thinking hard, they're working in teams, like they're enduring so that throughout the entire day, their like walls are kind of crashing down a little bit. And then they get to worship in the evening where we have just rock solid, worship leader, Chris Marvin. And he is just being used by God to lead these students to him. And the students don't have any inhibitions. Like they're just melting away. So there's something to be said about like leaving your normal rhythm to go and like, you experience God in a more unique way because you are going there typically more intentional about seeing God.
Sure.
It's not, I mean, we all know God's not at camp any more than he is at home, but the intentionality, I think, is the reason that people seem to like respond more. And like what a joy it is to like sit in the back of the room. Like we've all done it. Yeah. And we're just like looking at all of our students and leaders and they're just giving it their all. Yeah. Those are like the memories. Those are the moments where God just shows up.
Yeah, dude, it's so cool just seeing like, and I think too, like just that perspective of like removing distraction. Cause like we live such distracted lives. Our students are so just distracted. They're busy. There's always something new going on or something that they're spending time with or putting in between themselves and their relationship with Christ, whether it be a sport or an activity or a relationship or a device or whatever it is. And what I love about camp is it just provides like a space of like distraction free. Yeah, we're the boomer youth pastors that make kids turn their phones in when they get there. And it's intentional because it's this aspect of like, we're going to remove distractions from this space. And how many kids at the end of that week are like, I don't want it back.
You're right.
Like, please, I don't want it back. Like this week has been incredible. Like just getting to focus on like Christ and what he's doing. But I think for me, like some of the sweetest moments are like those mornings, like Devo times when it's kind of quiet. Like everybody's still really tired and worn out or whatever, but then you just walk around the camp and you see students leaning up against a tree or sitting at a picnic table with a couple of their friends or sitting in the dirt or sitting in a swing or wherever they've found themselves, but just with God's word open. And I just think that's such a beautiful picture of just like what Christ has called us to is just meeting him in the everyday places. Like it doesn't have to be inside this crazy, like programmed out, well-planned service. And those things are good, and I believe in those things. But I think for our students to see, like, man, I can meet with Jesus right here, like against this tree. And just seeing how much like God moves in those spaces, and students will come back and be like, man, did you know that it says this in here? And like, I mean, the funniest question I got last year was like, some of my girls decided their Camp Devo was going to be in Job. And I'm like, whatever, like do your thing. And then they're like, so what does he mean when he says, are you the sea or the sea monster? And I'm like, yeah. Sick. Glad that's what we're getting out of this, girls. But just that aspect of students just like getting after scripture, and spending time in God's word and seeing how he speaks to them and moves through that stuff. And we're still not sure what that actually means. I'm sure AJ will have a podcast for me to listen to after this that explains it. Now somehow it leads back to John MacArthur. But
I'd be like, so I was on this dumb podcast. You're talking about Job.
Yeah, no. But I think just that aspect. But what about for you? Like, is there like any spaces where you've been like, man, like Jesus used this to change or move in that individual's life, like a story you can tell or something?
One that comes to mind is early on, we had a church from downstate that would come up and join us. They were a smaller church, and they would bring their group up. And I would argue by like day 2, you didn't know who went to what church.
Oh, bro, that's how Camp 21 was. You guys would ask me, hey, who's that kid? I'm like, I have no clue.
Yeah, exactly. and we've seen it.
We're like, who is that kid?
And we've like seen it time and time again. Like you're right. Like with the last couple of camps we've done combined, we're like, they're all students. Like they're all like there.
Scream at them all the same.
Yeah, it's the same vibe. But it was like those students left. They went back downstate, but then they came back the next year. But then as like those students graduated, like a handful of them went and became like college roommates.
Yeah.
Or like stayed in touch to the point where like even if things moved or shifted or this group wasn't actually coming anymore, like those students were still like almost treating us like a Lake Ann or a camp like that. Like they were still asking, hey, can we come to camp? And so just knowing the impact that's happening of like, hey, we can reach, and that mentality of it's not just about us inside these walls or what we're doing, but like that, I would use the word outreach, like mentality of like, no, just come be a part of this. Like we know 100%. This can impact you. And then I have a handful of like just different leaders and different individuals who it's like, whether they experienced camp as a junior and senior and then like came back as like a leader, and they got that whole different perspective of like the behind the scenes, and like
they're usually so disappointed. They're like, wait, this is what you guys were doing? This is what happened?
But knowing like that was the driving force behind them to like go deeper in their own faith. Yeah. Or to volunteer more in ministry, or to pursue it at a different level because they got that experience of like, whoa, like this matters to Britton or AJ, this matters to Andrew, like this matters to these guys beyond just like showing up and coming up with the craziest game you can think of or throwing us in a mud pit. Like, well, you guys actually really care. Like you're asking us like, is this impacting the students? Share these examples, share these stories. And like, so I think for a volunteer to see that and experience that, like, I think there's countless number of individuals who just like, it spurred them on for more.
I mean, I think about like just a moment last year that we don't have to go into like crazy detail about because we'll probably all start crying, but I think about just like our leader meeting last year and just like leaders getting to love on leaders and seeing how like, sure, yeah, like we're there to pour into the students and like provide a space where like Christ can bring freedom and the gospel can save and redeem and bring students from death to life, but also how we're seeing like the gospel's continuing to work in our adult leaders that are chasing after him. But just like, I mean, last year, just getting to hear the conversations and the encouragement, the conversation you had with one of our leaders from Buckley, and just encouraging that dude, like, man, like you're making a difference. Like the steps you're taking, the pain you're stepping into, the purpose that you've decided to use your life for, bro, like it's massive. And just seeing like the dividends that paid in that individual's life, but also to all the people around that got to see like, man, like God is bigger than my comfort. God is bigger than like what I think I can do with my life. Like if I'll just say yes to him, like he'll move in a space like I never thought he could. And I think that Camp provides a platform for God to do that in a really cool way, where it's just a bunch of people that get together that are like collectively said yes to Jesus for a week. And how much like he moves in that space, I think it's just a really beautiful cool thing that we get to be a part of. So yeah, that's kind of like the what is it? That's what camp is. And then I know for some like parents listening to this, or maybe some students that'll check this podcast out, but just kind of like that why, like why should I go to camp? Why? Like what's the point? Or why would I go to that? And so what would kind of like you guys' be defense or maybe not even defense, just like an answer for the hope that's in you, like 1 Peter 3, like how camp has impacted and shaped you. Like what's your why behind camp?
I've always said I really believe the difference between like us and like a Lake Inn or a Spring Hill, which are all incredible camps, and like a ton of students go to those every year.
The difference is $500 is what the difference is. All right, I said it.
Sure, thank you. Yes, but I do think a massive difference is like it's programmed intentional for like you.
Yeah.
Like you as the student, like you're showing up to a place with people who know you already.
Mm-hmm.
You're interacting with leaders who've walked with you already. You're experiencing games and activities that like your leaders have sat down and said, I think our students would think this is fun.
Yeah.
Like there's that, we keep saying the word intentionality, but it's like we are intentionally thinking about you.
Mm-hmm.
Which again, to take nothing away from a Lake Inn or a Spring Hill or any of that, but like they're programmed in a way that's like, hey, this is just a mass experience where like, I don't know, we say intentional, like we mean that. Like this actually, we've literally had fill in the blank name, you know, in mind while we were planning out this camp.
Yeah. We're literally programming it with the like teams.
Yeah.
Like it or hate it, it doesn't matter, but like we have the names of students individually, like, oh, we probably shouldn't put them together.
Yep.
Or, dude, these guys would be great together.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so every single person is thought of intentionally.
That's good.
Yeah. And I think that's a huge benefit. Like, I think, you know, from a parent's perspective to know, like, oh, man, I actually probably know a majority of the people who are already there.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to send my student there. Like, I would hope, and from a parent perspective, like, I would already have a little bit more of a level of trust in that setting. And again, I say this to not take anything away from any other camps. There's something to like, there's a known factor to it that I think is really beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. And I think too, just the built-in follow-up that goes with your student going to camp with the church that they belong to. Because, they're building community with students that they're coming home with. And I think like I've spoke at Lake Ann, I've done things for other large camps and traveled and stuff, and it's awesome. And God moves in those spaces and He impacts students' life. But the follow up is so much more difficult in those spaces because it's kind of an individual sport, right? Whereas like our students that are going to Camp 23 or whichever, or Freeze Out or whatever you want to call it, but what our students that are going to things with their whole entire student ministry, there's built-in community for them to come home with, to continue in the commitments that they've made, to continue in the decisions that they've made. And I think that there's value in being able to look to your left and to your right and to know, man, I'm doing this with others. And that's where I think like that Lake Ann, or I hate even using names, but like those larger camps where your student goes as an individual, they're great. And I know plenty of people that they have impacted in incredible ways, but I will say like, I don't think they're a replacement for your student being a part of your local student ministry, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, there's no way around the fact that we know and love our students in a unique way than any other camp. And so like we not only can we program stuff for them, but we can also, like you said, follow up, that accountability where like for a student to be a little bit vulnerable and transparent with a camp counselor is one thing, but to do it with their small group leader or their youth pastor or like an upperclassman or something like that, where it's like when we go back home, like you know me, you know my siblings, you know my friends, you know the people I kind of live with and run with, that is another level of accountability.
Yeah.
And I think that it's really sweet to like go years in the ministry, like faithfully just growing and seeing how the Lord is faithful in all of that. So, you know, people would talk about how like they would call back memories from junior high camp.
Right.
when they're like graduating because of the moment, like the impact that made.
Yeah.
And so it there's no there's nothing there's no way around arguing the fact that custom like youth camps with your specific youth groups just has something that nothing else can touch.
Yeah, 100%. I think that that's a huge aspect to the why, and I think another piece of the why is because it matters. Like it matters for the life of your student. If you're a parent listening to this and youth camp is low on the priority list compared to basketball camp or sports camp or music camp or kayak camp or snorkeling camp or whatever camp you're trying to use, like this is the most single-handedly the most important thing in your child's life, and it is their relationship with Jesus Christ. So why would you not take the opportunity to give them a week to go to a place where they can be specifically poured into, where they will hear the gospel taught, they will worship together with peers, they will spend time in conversation with people that are continuing to try to see their sanctification process continued in a way that glorifies and honors Christ, that takes the gospel and doesn't just make it this personal thing for them, but then it equips them with the gospel to then take that gospel to their schools, to their homes, to their friend groups. And I think that as a parent, and I know that that's dangerous as somebody that doesn't have kids, but I'd hope that someday somebody will say this to me if it's not a priority for me as I'm raising children, is that as a parent, like you are one of the key people in your child's life. And right now you have the opportunity to set their priorities. And so like, even if they don't necessarily want to go, it's okay to say, hey, you're going. I think a wise man once on this podcast named Benji Vermillion said, you're their parent, just make them go. They have to do what you say, but I think that there's an aspect of that, and there will be the kids that show up reluctantly and don't want to be there. But then by the end of the week, it's full send. Like you can only withstand and play too cool for so long.
That's right.
Before you inevitably crumble and have the best week of your life,
Yeah.
And then you're like, man, I wish I would have bought in sooner.
Yeah.
But I think.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'm gonna point it to Andrew because Andrew got a story.
Yeah.
About that. Remember that at Starwood, that one kid came and just blazing atheist, talking about how you could take it over because that was just really sweet story.
Did like the mud pit,
yeah,
and whatnot. So he like wrestled in the mud pit for a while and played all these different games, and then it like ended and everyone left, and he like sat by this tree and just sat there forever. And I think we had two leaders like Jared and maybe Parker or maybe Mason.
Yeah,
that's dangerous.
Like went back and just like sat with him because they knew he liked video. Well, again, you talk about the intentionality. Like they knew he liked video games. They knew he liked certain things. They just sat and they had this conversation. And like we're talking like night one, he's back of the room, arms crossed, like wanting nothing to do with anything being there. Like the total got dragged there. To like night two, same thing. Girl he likes is there. That's why he's there in the first place. To like night three, to like down in front, like hands on his face, like giving his life to Christ because just like during that conversation there by the mud pit, like those guys started out talking about some video game and ended talking about the gospel and talking about Jesus, and to the point where then gives life to Christ, and we're able to follow up like because he was at church the next couple Sundays, and like just to keep that connection, that relationship. And it's just like, I don't know. I know God can do anything and move anywhere, but like that's just like a prime example of like to see a progression of basically a hater coming into like truly being like, wow, my life's radically changed.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%, bro. I love just those stories. Last year, you got to have, we had multiple conversations, but I think to a story of a student that, months before we left for camp, was saying, man, I don't even know if I believe any of this anymore. Like this feels like it's all made up. Like it's just not. I just want to do what I want. Like I want to choose my way, and I want to do that. And then by the end of camp, like this student me and him are standing outside of the worship service, just crying together, just having a moment of like, man, like I was wrong. Like I want to commit to Christ. I want to commit to His way for my life, and understanding like, man, it's gonna be difficult. It's gonna be hard. It's not always gonna be what I want to do. But I've realized this week, like I'm just living a lie without Him.
Wow.
And then seeing that student go back into that space and begin to worship. But just like you said, like those first couple of nights, like it's like, bro didn't want to be there.
Mhm.
Mom and dad made him go.
Mm-hmm.
And it is what it is. But now that student still to this day is fired up about Jesus. He's inviting his friends to church. We're seeing some incredible heart work begin to happen as he sits around fight club tables with his peers. And we're just seeing like God is using this student to not only continue something in his heart, but he's also continuing something in other people's hearts because of the impact of a parent.
Mm-hmm.
Literally 2 parents. I know love these people dearly that said, we don't care. You live in our house, you're going.
Mm.
And now that kid is fired up about following Jesus. Was that kid pumped? Probably not. When mom and dad told him that, there was probably some tension in the house. They probably weren't the favorites at that moment. But they said, as long as you're in our house, this is the standard by which we're living our life. And you're going to go. And now that student, I mean, our student ministry has legitimately grown by like 10 kids. And we've grown by more than that. But just specifically, we have 10 more kids because of that kid.
Wow.
Because a parent said, no, you're going.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jesus showed up and he honored that. And he honored parents saying, you know what? Like, yes, we love you. Yes, we want to be your friends. Yes, we want you to have fun. But at the end of the day, this is what really matters, and we're going to hold you to that. And I think just seeing parents take that step and how God honors that is so cool to me.
Yeah. Like they're the primary disciple maker in the home.
100%.
Right? So we're not trying to parent, how all of our students.
Right.
That's not our job.
No.
And we're not trying to take that away from them. And I was getting coffee with a parent this morning, and I was just telling them, like, look, I love the fact that you like care about your son's spiritual maturity and that like we are partnering in discipling your children.
That's such a good word.
To where like you can lean on me and I can lean on you and we're pointing them in the same direction rather than, I mean, we have those parents too that were kind of like that honor your parent, but
right.
I don't know how to say this. That's just not good advice. Like that's not wise. Or keep Christ central, or sometimes you just got to sacrifice your desires or whatever the situation is that we're like going against the grain in the home, which is a tough spot to be in. But it's really sweet when the parents are like advocating for their students' spiritual growth as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes against that kid's will.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I think that's even cooler when the parents like, bro, I don't care. Like you're going. And so, no, I think that preaches a message to the student that like, hey, you know what? Like my parents care about me even if I don't like the way they're caring about me right now. Sweet. So this year, Camp 23, AJ, since you're the only real pastor here that brought his Bible, will you open, let's see if he knows it, to where we're the theme verse? All
right. Let's see if I know it.
Let's see if he knows it. I know what it is.
Let's see. Yeah, I know it. We got
Moment of truth. Yep.
Chapter 20.
Okay. Okay.
All right, let's see.
Dang, you know I'm an underline? That's crazy.
That's all right.
24.
Here we go. Want me to just read it?
Yeah.
All right. Acts chapter 20. Paul's talking to the Ephesian elders. But I do not account my life of any value, nor as precious to myself, if only I may finish my course and the ministry that I received from the Lord Jesus, to testify to the gospel of the grace of God. And now, behold, I know that none of you among whom I have gone about proclaiming the kingdom will see my face again. Therefore, I testify to you this day that I am innocent of the blood of all, for I did not shrink from declaring to you the whole counsel of God. I'm going to keep going.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out where it says
Pay careful attention to yourselves and to all the flock in which the Holy Spirit has made you overseers to care for the church of God, which he obtained with his own blood. I know that after my departure, fierce wolves will come in among you, not sparing the flock, and from among your own selves will arise men speaking twisted things to draw away the disciples after them. Therefore, be alert. Remember that for 3 years I did not cease night or day to admonish everyone with tears.
Yeah. Yeah. But just like that key piece of, I consider my life of no value. My purpose is to finish my course.
That's right.
And so this year, Camp 23, the vision behind it, the theme, whatever you want to call it, is we want our students to live on purpose.
Yeah.
To understand as they show up that as disciples of Christ. Because I think something that we're seeing in a lot of our groups is we have students that are pretty bought in to Christ. They're bought into this kind of, they're really cool with Jesus being their Savior, but they're not 100% all the time on him being their Lord. And so I think just that aspect of seeing students take that next step, so that's kind of the desire, is to see like, man, you know what, like our kids, like a lot of them have received, have given their life to Christ by grace through faith, and have had an incredible moment of reconciliation, of coming from death to life. But now we want to see our students equipped with the gospel to go and then live on purpose. And that's kind of like a play on words. We want them to live, one, on the purpose that God has given them, but also just intentionally on purpose lives, that they're going to be intentional with the time that God's given them, that they're going to wade into difficult circumstances. They're going to say, you know what, like this might not be easy, but we are going to be the generation that sees Matthew 24 come to fold, that when this gospel of the kingdom is preached to all nations, then the end will come. Like that's the goal. That's what's coming out of Camp 23 this year. Is yes, there's going to be, and I'm going to let Andrew kind of rip here in a minute and kind of promo some of the stuff we've got coming up. But also I think just for parents listening to this, like your kid's not just coming to have a good time.
Right.
Like it will 100%, I can guarantee you, be one of the best weeks of their summer. Like camp rips. Like it's fun. But I think that aspect of like, so you as parents that are listening or as students that are listening, so you can get excited, or just somebody that's maybe going to be praying for this, like let that be your prayer, that the generation that is coming to camp, the 6th through 12th graders that are a part of our church today at Westside, at Bayview, at the Tabernacle, at New Hope, at Faith Reformed, at Kensington, at all of those places, let the prayer be that this generation would live on purpose.
Yeah.
That they would live on the purpose that Christ has set forth for them, the purpose that he has died for them, and that now they're going to take this, that they're going to finish the course, that they're going to take what they have received and they're going to testify to the gospel of God's grace. And I think just that beautiful piece of that, and that's going to be like the whole thing, the whole picture of it's built out of that. But as we were kind of talking, I don't know, just kind of both of you rip on that a little bit, like why are you excited about that for our students?
Yeah. Well, I know that, I mean, we're trying to do something here. So we're building off of the foundation of last year, that like with Jesus, like we wanted to really press into their personal relationship with the Lord. And so that's why we're seeing, and praise God that we're seeing that relational depth where kids are bought in, like they're sold out, like they're in it. And now the question is, okay, well, what do I do with it? Yeah. Like we talked about how like you need to be with Jesus, belong to Jesus, do what Jesus did. And like that reality, I think, is sinking in. And so for the student who this is all new, this year will be helpful to be able to talk about, well, this is what you do with it. This is how to live on mission. This is how to live sacrificially. This is how to live, with a heart to testify to the gospel, to not count your life worth anything, like those kinds of things. Yeah,
that's cool.
So see just the spiritual growth in these students' lives.
Yeah. Because I think one of my least favorite things that happens at camps, and as you travel, and both of you travel and you see this, is it almost becomes this like wash, rinse, repeat. Like every year I just come back and this will be my thing, and then I'll surrender the same stuff, and then I'll just kind of wash, rinse, repeat. And so I think with that kind of moving forward for our students, like obviously there are going to be some new students that come that weren't there for the theme of with Jesus, and the gospel's still going to be preached. It's still going to be presented. There's still going to be an opportunity. But for the majority of our students that have been coming to these things for a minute, like we want this to continue. We don't want camp to just become this like wash, rinse, repeat, but we want them to see that there's kind of this continued sanctification process that's happening through your walk with Christ, that yes, you are justified, but also you're being sanctified, and that there's this aspect of like it continues. It's not just wash, rinse, repeat, go do all the same sins again for 365 more days, but just make sure you surrender them before you leave camp, and then you'll be good for the next year. But so I think that that's kind of a big part of that vision too, as it continues to advance.
Yeah. And it's not missed that I think a lot of the students who come, probably the majority of them, probably in some way or fashion are believers already. Yeah. Like already have some kind of relationship. It tends to be more that vibe. So I think the theme of on purpose is perfect, because that tends to be the next step, what we've already said, of just like, I believe student ministry, like a growth within a student ministry, and you already hit on this, like me as a 30 some odd old individual and you guys are still younger, but like getting up there in your 20s, like
Shots fired.
it's coming.
That hits.
It's coming.
Wait till y'all see me stand up out of this chair.
Like there's a reality, like there's the jokes always made about like the 50-year-old youth pastor and just some of that kind of stuff, like
Richie.
yeah, like
Adam.
yeah, Adam, big time. My impact is not me being cool and
Yeah.
getting students to like Pied Piper, like follow me.
Right.
Like the impact is the 7th grader who's fired up about youth group and about Jesus and about what God's doing and inviting their friends.
Yeah.
And the senior who's like, yeah, I'm going to stick it out and not just bail. And I'm actually going to finish strong in terms of being a part of this ministry and almost taking a leadership mindset and wanting their friends and wanting younger people to engage. Like growth in a ministry comes from students.
Yeah.
Living on purpose, like
100%.
actual genuinely taking what they know, what they've heard, what they've learned, and like living that out.
Yeah.
And I say, I always believe camp is for a lot of people. If we take that mindset of a lot of them are showing up with some form of relationship with Christ, like
Right.
this is more of a launching pad than like the
100%.
beginning. And so,
Yeah.
I'm excited for that. I'm excited to go back with students who are fired up and realize like, okay, like this is like, I'm called to more than just like this personal relationship with God. Like that's the big thing, but like, I want people to know about this now. And so like to go out and to like, they don't even have to invite them to church, right? They don't have to bring them to youth group, but
Right.
they actually be able to speak to like, this is how God changed my life.
Oh, 100%.
And I just think I'm just pumped up for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I love too, like just that aspect that's where all of this kind of comes full circle of why I love doing it with other people, because like we can leave encouraged because we know that there's a lot of the world that needs Jesus, and it's not going to be just one youth group.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Traverse City that needs
Mhm.
Jesus, and it's not just going to be one church that gets it done. And so I think just that aspect of like we get to come and be encouraged together that we're all leaving here on the same mission.
Yeah.
We're all leaving here with the same purpose, and we're going to go and we're going to preach this gospel. We're going to live this gospel. We are going to be the ones to take this message that has been entrusted to us to the ends of Buckley, to the ends of Traverse City, to the ends of Williamsburg, to Manistee, to wherever you want to say. But just that aspect that like we can leave it encouraged of like we're gaining ground.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
from that like war kind of perspective of like we're taking more ground.
Yeah.
And the more of us that are in this, the more students that are getting fired up about living on purpose, like the more ground we're taking.
Yeah.
And that's what fires me up, I think, as I kind of come in that space and see all those people together. So
Yeah, 100%.
And like I trust you guys.
yeah.
Like I trust you guys to like see not only practically like boy and girl walking around and one of you guys yelling at them like, yo, weird, like
Yeah.
get back over here, but also like a student just coming up to you guys and like, hey, I need to start taking my relationship with Jesus serious. Like, what do I do? Like we trust one another to be able
100%.
to like, it's the unity and
Yeah.
essentials.
Yep.
And so we're after the same thing.
Yeah.
And that like real raw, like unshakable commitment to the gospel together.
And I think the kids
is
see that
huge.
too.
Mhm.
I think they see that and they start to see that that's more of what the kingdom looks like than maybe what they've seen before. But I mean, a picture of that last year's, I had one of my students that I've been pouring into, answering questions, walking through life with for 3+ years. And we're standing there and we're having the same conversation again. And it just got to this place of like, it finally like the Holy Spirit like prompted and it like clicked in my head of like, I don't need to have this conversation. And Andrew's standing there. Andrew doesn't know this kid. This kid goes to our Manistee campus. Like, he's never interacted with this kid. And I was like, Andrew, can you talk to him?
Mm.
And then this kid comes at it with this whole new perspective. And then I'm like, oh, well, what did he say? And the kid repeats all of it. And I was like, I've been saying that for 3 years. But just that aspect of it, that's just beautiful about doing it together.
Yeah.
And so I just love that. Andrew, shameless plug, some of the activity stuff we got going on, some of the hype stuff. But don't give it all away.
Don't give it all away.
Yeah.
I shouldn't talk about like the late night stuff or.
I mean, you can talk about, like, I think most of them know about
Actually,
the main one.
I need to know, will there be
Okay.
German bat ball
Oh,
There are riots happening at Elevate.
Most confusing game of all time. And Bill Stone will win.
no, we're not playing German bat ball. We're playing it twice.
It's actually the only
it's the
game.
only game.
Right,
It's
right.
the only game.
It's just all
Benji.
variations.
Benji, did
of
you
it.
play German bat ball?
It made no sense.
You're welcome, Benji.
Were you on the?
At some point, people were like, they're cheating. I'm like, no, they're playing the rules.
Yeah, right. They're just playing the game.
If no one knows the rules, there is no cheating. Like, that's
Hey, you win some, you lose some. You just ride it out and then
Right.
realize
Cry,
never
it's
again.
Yes.
Mr. Stone was just gonna yell at you no matter what.
Yeah. Mr. Stone being Bill Stone.
Yeah.
Complaint
Uncle
department
Bill.
here at the Tabernacle.
Yeah, I was like, oh, Bill, we're on the same team. Leave me alone.
Just screaming at you. It's like, Uncle Bill, chill, bro.
I'm the all-time pitcher. Leave me alone. Yeah, so no German bat ball, but no, I'm excited about games this year. Got to spend a lot of time with Richie Henson from New Hope and John Cargill from Kensington, and those guys like are just a wealth of just chaos. And so
Love it.
couple things we're if you've been to camp before, we are going to play a little game called Frizzbacher. That's kind of like a staple of
That's
camp.
OG. That's became a staple of Foundry.
Yes.
That's going to be a pro sport someday.
I think one of my favorite moments of Frizzbacher was when I realized that I am the king of being on the platform. Like, my body type has never been built more for being on the platform.
Like
that,
really stable.
If it went pro,
and just
if
tall.
Frizzbacher went
Yeah.
pro, I'd be the LeBron of platform play.
you would be.
It would be a rat, bro.
Let's go.
So we're gonna do that. We got the mud pit's gonna be fired up. Those some of those stuff that just kind of become staples of camp.
Bro, I
But,
almost died in that mud pit last year.
yeah. He
There was
almost drowned.
legitimate. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
There was a moment where we were doing the tire game, and I have an arm hooked around this tire, and for some reason Andrew's like, all the students versus all the leaders.
The best game.
I'm like, Andrew, there's 4-1 students to leaders.
It's like 6-1.
And at one point, bro, I'm hooked to this tire inner tube, and just my lips are above the water on the mud pit, and I can't. I'm just trying to breathe. It's not even like a win. It's like, am I gonna still? Is my wife gonna come? My wife gonna be a widow at the conclusion of this mud pit? And I remember I stand up and let go of the tire. I look over, and Trey and Andrew are just standing there staring at me, and I'm legit like, I have never been so desperate for air. Bro, I have never in my life. I played college football. Like, I've walked up a lot of stairs, like Golden Corral. Like, I have done a lot of things that caused me to be out of breath.
Yeah.
I have never been so desperate for air as I was getting out of that mud pit and just trying to, like, survive.
Yeah.
So
Not
mud
cry.
pit's hype.
Not cry.
There
just
is,
don't cry. Big girls don't cry.
There have been 0 significant injuries.
No one's died.
No one's died.
But I'll tell you what, if you would
No
have
one's
presented
gone to the hospital
in that
because
moment,
of that.
if I wasn't saved and somebody would have presented the gospel, I would have said yes to Jesus immediately, because I've never been closer to meeting him, bro. I've never been.
That's what we got to do.
Yeah, we'll tell Paul, hey, gospel presentation is actually Thursday
After the
afternoon.
mud pit.
That's good.
But bro, my favorite thing about the mud pit is for the past year in our 5-minute countdown, our church has watched me throw you in the mud.
That was the cheapest, dirtiest play ever, because I forget who it was. So there was like,
Me, you and Adam.
yeah. Well, me and you decided to no. Me and Adam were going to do exactly what you did. We're going to pray together, and then we're just going to push you in the mud pit.
Yeah.
And then you came up to me and was like, dude, you know what we got to do? Like, we got to flip it on him. Like, you and I do it. So I was thinking, oh, bro.
But the whole time, Adam and I knew we were doing it to AJ.
In my mind, I'm like, bro, this is crazy. Like, it's going to be like me and like I'm a double agent. Like, this is hilarious. This is so good, because he's gonna think.
It just felt like he was a part of it.
I did. I was like, like this is so sick. They're gonna think like, oh, I'm gonna get him, and then like we got him. It's so funny. And then they got me, and they ruined
the Step Brothers.
my
God.
life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we did. So mud pit.
Mud pit. The dirt search is coming
Ooh,
back.
dirt
Let's
search.
go.
We want to find the least talented
Yeah.
student at
Least
camp.
talented
Benji.
person.
Benji, what was your favorite dirt search moment last year? Did you have one? No. Are you going to compete this year?
Probably not, but I forgot most of them. So.
You remember when Corey broke the bat and then Trey made fun of him for having a high voice?
Yeah.
I love it. Benji, what was your favorite part of camp last year? Did you have one? You're here.
Mm-hmm.
You went. Are you going to go again?
Yeah.
Are you excited?
Sure.
Why would you? This is one of the greatest plugs ever. Why
this
would
is
you
literally
This
you
is
are
every conversation
undoing
now.
Yes.
the last hour of our
Why would
conversation.
you say a student should go to camp?
Do it.
Get some.
Need you say more?
Do it. Don't just let your dreams be dreams.
Right.
Yeah, they should do it. Yeah, I don't know how much else to share. We got some other stuff.
It's gonna be crazy.
Some fun stuff planned. Some chaos. That's the name of one of the games.
I will shamelessly share, shameless plug. Chris Marvin will be back for worship, but this year it's bringing the full band.
Come on.
The Spark. So that's going to be hype.
Yeah, I've never had that before.
Yeah,
Should be
we'll make
cool.
sure to put a YouTube link in the show notes so people can check them out on YouTube. Just to get excited beforehand. Paul Epperson this year will be our speaker. Tabernacle family, you guys know him. He was our host for our Tab students outreach trip that we went on to Columbia, Mississippi. Your students love him. He is the sweetest man on the planet. He's one of those guys that just like when you meet Paul, you instantly feel like this is how Jesus would have treated you.
Yeah.
Like he is like legit one of the kindest, most like incredible. He's hilarious.
My favorite thing about Paul was we went to Britton. You and I spoke at a camp that he was at, and we arrived, the three of us together. And we had like some leader meeting or something right away, and we like went to meet the leaders, and Paul was gone. Like we're like, okay, like you're like classic Paul. It's like, okay, whatever. So we like go to this leader meeting, we like are meeting people, and we like walk back into the cafeteria, and Paul is like sitting at this table, and he's like just referring to, it's surrounded by students. He's just calling, like referring to them by their name. And like, we're like, where have you been for the last hour? And he like literally had just gone student to student, table to table, like game to game, like just interacting and like pouring on students. And did that all week.
That's
and
awesome.
So as a parent, you want to talk about like a guy who's gonna like legitimately, passionately share the gospel, but also like love on your student. Like
And the broken preach.
Paul's the man. Yeah, it's
The
gonna
broken
be cool.
preach. He's awesome. You can only understand like every fourth word that he says. I'll never forget that. We were driving to the I can't remember where we were going, but it was you, me,
We're in Oklahoma.
in the front. Paul and Hope were in the back seat, and we're sitting there. And Hope was like, I was like, so how was the drive? Like all this, we were just like dating, and or maybe we were engaged. And she's like, it was cool. It was my first time meeting Paul, and I was like, yeah. And she goes, yeah, he's not the one for small talk. We're just sitting there, and then we're 3 minutes, maybe 3 seconds in, and he just looks at me and goes, so what's Jesus been doing in your life lately? And Hope's like, bro, I don't even know you. So that's Paul Epperson, man. That is Paul Epperson. So I'm super pumped just about that aspect of it. It's going to be fun, man. I'm so excited. There's going to be tons and tons of youth leaders from all of our campuses, from the Tabernacle, from all of our churches, adult leaders. It's going to be a great time. It's going to be a great time. It's at Lost Valley Retreat Center in Gaylord. The dates are July 24th through the 28th. The price is $200 currently, but on July 1st, that bad boy's getting jacked up to $250 because spots are extremely limited. If you're a part of the Tabernacle family and you want to send your student to camp, but maybe finances just doesn't look like it's going to work out, please don't ever let money be a reason that your kid can't go to camp. We have people that are part of our church that love the next generation, would love to see your kid get to have that opportunity. Or if you're listening to this and you say, you know what, man, this brought back some nostalgia. Camp deeply impacted me, and you want to send a student to camp, you can do that as well. Just make sure to note camp scholarship on your giving envelope or online or whatever that looks like. So, yeah, man, thank you guys so much for coming and hanging, talking about Camp 23. I am so pumped. I wish it was happening this weekend. It's such a good time. It's so much fun. I'm excited for the Starbucks runs. I'll never forget last year when I didn't realize that I drank 2 of those Monsters in a row. You remember that? And my heart almost stopped.
Do you remember that?
Bro, I was dying. I was like, I literally already drank one of these.
Oh, man.
We're getting ready to dirt search it, and I'm 2 Monsters deep in 3 minutes.
And then you perform that magic show.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Fake magic show. AJ's going to bring Mundos.
Let's go.
Coffee for the
Yes,
leaders.
sir.
Andrew's going to break it.
Whoa.
Yeah, man. You back on the cheese?
I'm always on the cheese.
No,
He stays on it.
Can't keep the nims. Love it. Hey, Tab family, we love you guys. We are excited. If you're listening to this, AJ, where can they sign up if they go to Westside?
Our website under upcoming.
Awesome. And Bayview?
Our website under students.
Nice. Yeah. And if you don't want to go with them, you can sign up on the Tabernacle on our app. No, I'm just kidding. So, hey, Benji, love you, bro. Appreciate you coming and doing this. Tab family, whoever else is listening to this, see y'all at Camp 23. And until next time, this is the boys signing off.